It has not even been a day since the 46th President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, entered into the White House, and the administration has already conducted a strategic blunder with a major foreign policy change. For a brief period on Wednesday, after the swearing-in ceremony at the Capitol Hill, the official Twitter handle for the U.S. ambassador to Israel had its title changed from U.S. ambassador to Israel to U.S. ambassador to Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. The title sparked an outcry online, including among Republican lawmakers, and was quietly changed back to U.S. Ambassador to Israel after a few hours. It is imperative to note that the Trump administration in 2019 recognized Israeli settlements in the West Bank as part of Israel in contravention to decades of U.S. policy. However, Washington does not have relations with the Gaza Strip, which is run under the authority of Hamas, which the U.S. has designated a terrorist organization. Therefore, by naming both regions separately in the Twitter handle, a signal was inadvertently sent by the Joe Biden team that Democrats were doing a volte-face on Trump's policy by bringing back Palestine on USA's agenda and playing into the hands of Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists. This also gives us an indication that the Biden regime might have a different stance on the idea of having the US Embassy in Jerusalem. Michael McCaul, the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, has said, "It's incredibly troubling that the administration made this controversial move on day one without consulting with the Congress. It also seems to fly in the face of comments made by Antony Blinken yesterday. I strongly urge the president to clarify this provocative move quickly." The growing Israel-US relations, which reached a new pinnacle under the Trump administration, will be tested in the coming few days. The Biden administration is keen on sitting across the table with Iran and go back to Obama's days of the Iran-US nuclear deal, despite the security threats cited by Israel. National newspapers of Israel are already reporting that Jerusalem is warning that if America returns to the former terms of the nuclear deal with Iran under President Joe Biden, then this could lead the region into a crisis again. A senior Israeli official has also been quoted as saying, "If Biden adopts Obama's plan, we will have nothing to talk about with him." Joe Biden is expected to reinstate the Iran nuclear deal or the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which Trump threw into the bin and alternatively levied heavy sanctions on Iran. Reported by TFI, salivating at the prospect of a weak US leader who is certainly set to sit across the table with Tehran and ease down the sanctions imposed by Trump, Iran has resumed the operation to enrich uranium to up to 20% purity to develop the nuclear bomb. History has taught us that even when the JCPOA was in force, Iran continued to develop its nuclear arsenal covertly. Israeli-American relations had touched a low point towards the end of the Obama presidency, in large part due to Netanyahu's clashes with the Obama administration over the Iran deal. And the relations aren't off to a great start in the Biden era either. Donald Trump has brought stability in the Middle East through the Abraham Accords, peace deals brokered by the White House for the normalization of relations between Israel and several Arab states. And if Biden flips on Trump's policy, which seems imminent appearing by the change in the Twitter title of the handle and the overall stand of the Biden administration on Palestine, then Israel, as well as the Middle East, including the de facto leader Saudi Arabia, will be miffed. A week before leaving the White House, Donald Trump was actively working with Netanyahu to decimate the Iranian influence in eastern Syria. Israeli forces conducted airstrikes in eastern Syria on Iran-linked targets with intelligence provided by the United States, suggesting that both Trump and Netanyahu had finished on a high note. During Trump's tenure, both countries jointly conducted several operations to hurt Iran. However, all that is set to change. Despite the reassurances from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, as long as the Obama-era Iran deal is on the cards, one cannot help but see Biden's desperation to emulate Obama's dastardly legacy. With this, Biden is all set to skewer the USA's ties with Israel and the Arab world and bring to life again the issue of Palestine.